So, thank you so much for listening to My Voices. We are starting this episode a bit differently today. I do have to give you a warning that at the 4 minute mark, for about a minute, my guest shares details of her early life in Cambodia that some may find disturbing. So feel free to skip that part. 4 minute mark, about 1 minute, but I will give you a warning beforehand. So, welcome to Khmer Voices, where we shine a spotlight on the achievements of the Khmer diaspora around the world. I'm your host, Wanni, aka Vanny. You know that Cassidy song, I'm a Hustler, that came out in 2005? And Jay-Z's featured in the chorus and he says, I'm a hustler, I'm a hustler, homie. Yeah, that right there came to me when I thought about my interview with Channy Salazar. Obviously, not literally regarding the rest of the song, but this woman, she's a hustler, homies. She grinds. In this episode, Channy shares vivid memories of her childhood, from her short but traumatic time in Cambodia to her coming of age in Texas, where they lived in a mobile home and they were so poor they, for example, used the oven for heating. Now, Channy is the founder of Resilient Edge Investments and Constructions and the co-founder of North Texas Tint Institute, alongside her husband, Adrian Salazar, in Fort Worth, Texas. With over 17 years as an entrepreneur and 13 years in the corporate world, she's leveraged this experience to co-establish North Texas Tint Institute, a trade school dedicated to teaching the skills of window tinting and paint production film. And recently, Channy's launched the Resilient Education Initiative Scholarship. It's a nonprofit that provides financial assistance to those seeking education at North Texas Tint Institute, and it also supports various educational projects in Cambodia. Now, I'd like to end Channy's intro here with her exact words she submitted for her bio to me. Quote, Channy embodies the American dream, consistently seeking opportunities to give back as a way of honoring God's gift of a second chance at life. A devout woman, Channy finds great joy in her charitable work, viewing it as a means to honor God and create a lasting legacy. She values her family and close friends, striving to live with love and integrity. Through her philanthropy, Channy Salazar aims to make a lasting, positive impact for future generations. End quote. Now, this is another story that I think you'll find incredible. Another quick note. We'll be taking a quick break over the holidays and we'll be returning with the next episode on January the 7th. Enjoy my interview with Channy.
Well, I was born in 1973, so I was very young when the war broke out in 1975. So I was born there, did not live there for very long. When the war broke out, I was just barely 2 years old. And then we made our trek to Thailand, to a camp. I'm sure a lot of people my age are familiar, Khao Dang. We stayed there for several months before we were transferred to kind of our temporary permanent home until a sponsor was able to sponsor our family.
All right. I am just cutting in here to give you a warning that the next minute will contain some details that you may find disturbing.
I have, little bits and pieces of different memories, terrible memories, of just the violence that took place, during the journey that we took from, Cambodia to Thailand. I mean, I've seen people stepping on bomb and being exploded, but those are little things that I would, remember. I remember, just things that a child should never have to remember. I saw a family being executed, and I was probably about 3.5, 4, because they tried to escape, and they lined them up and had the whole town people sit and watch a whole family being executed. And I just remember screaming into my grandmother's lap, and them yelling at her, telling her that, her to shut me up. I had memories of that. And then just nightmares from that situation for a long, long time.
All right. So here's just a quick note to let you know that you are safe now from any content that you may find disturbing.
And then we finally got sponsored out of Kavedang to transfer to a little island in Indonesia. I don't know if anybody remember this. I have memories of that. It's a little island called Galang, Indonesia. And that was where you stayed until a sponsor from the U.S. Actually sponsored your family. And a Methodist church actually in Texas sponsored our family. My grandparents and my uncle ended up going to the Philippines. And then my mom, my stepdad, my uncle, which is my dad's younger brother and sister, and then my brothers, two younger brothers and myself, we went to Galang and then ended up going to Texas. Our life in a little town called Euless, Texas. I think many people that did come to Texas stayed kind of close to the airport, DFW airport. And just remember mom and dad working multiple jobs, learning as best as they could. We were latchkey kids. For those that don't know what that is, it's basically your parents giving you a key to your house. And they basically say, you go to school, you come home, you do what you need to do because we're busy working. And I don't look at that experience as something that is bad. I look at that experience as something that was just part of my journey and part of growing up with parents that, had to adapt to the new environment. They didn't speak any English. So I became somebody that had to translate many documents for my parents as best as I could. At a very young age, I literally took on that role of a mother to my two brothers, reading anything that came our way and try my best to translate it to them. So looking back, I'm like, wow, I can't believe I actually did that. But I felt this sense of responsibility to always make sure, as the eldest of 5 children, I had this sense of responsibility of my parents put a lot of faith in me and making sure that I did what I needed to do to take care of the responsibility that I don't think I should have at such a young age. But at the same time,
You didn't have any option.
I didn't have any option. And honestly, I look back and I'm so grateful and so thankful that my parents put that on me, because I don't think I would be where I am today if I didn't have that responsibility. So that kind of leads to the journey of just how I've kind of look at life of, we grew up very, very poor, stayed in a 2-bedroom mobile home. And, my brother and I shared a bedroom. My siblings, the little one stayed with mom and dad, and then the other one, they would sleep in the living room or whatever. And then for winter time, we would open up the oven for heat. Things like that, we never felt poor because we always had enough. Like mom always had, dad always had eggs and rice and soy sauce and cereal and bologna. So to us, that was enough. We never really thought, hey, we're poor, because our stomach was always fed. We had a roof over our head, and our mom and dad, the coolest thing that I remember was every Thursday they would get paid. They worked for the airport, in the assembly line, prepping food for the airlines. And every Thursday they would get paid. And then that's when we I think I was probably around 11 or 12. My mom started doing this thing of like, hey, let's go to the mall and eat. And we're like, really? We get to go to the mall and eat? And so she would literally pack up the kids in the station wagon, and she would take us to this local mall, and we would go and actually get to eat whatever we wanted. And back then, obviously it was like $1.25 or whatever, just to get like a Mantua walk or something like that. She thought that Chinese food was like the best, right? But it was our treat. And those are memories that I have of, and they're very precious memories, for me, and the sacrifices that my parents made for us. I told myself at 10 years old, can you believe this, Vanny? At 10 years old, I said, Well, I think what happened was our electricity got cut off and my parents was just struggling. And I remember I was so angry because the electricity got cut off and I was getting ready for school and we didn't have any way to look at, and I was like, I'm never going to be poor again, ever. And I remember yelling that. And I said, when I grow up, I'm never going to be poor. And I had no idea that what I said back then would really kind of drive me and my soul, to just keep working really hard. Because my parents would always say, we may be poor, but you don't always have to stay in that, mindset. Just, go to school and learn as much as you can so that you can get out of the situation. So education is something that nobody's ever going to take away from you if you learn it, right? And so I didn't know really what that meant back then because I just thought, oh my gosh, my mom is just so tough on me. Like, why? Why am I the only one that she's always like, do this, do this, do this, do this? And, like I said, I didn't understand it growing up. I just thought she was the meanest person in the world because she expected so much from me. And I had to set the example for the little one. And I couldn't date. I couldn't be just a kid just to have fun. No, I went to school. I learned. I came home. And I learned some more. And so reading was something that I loved and enjoyed as a kid. I love reading. And now as an adult, what's crazy is that I look back and I'm like, I'm glad I read a lot of books because whenever I say something, they're like, well, how do you know that? And so I'm like, well, I read a lot of books, because I couldn't go anywhere. I really wasn't the all-American kids that got to go and hang out and party and all that stuff. So I spend a lot of time reading and taking my mind, to different places. Getting out of that subject because all of that really did help me. I met my first husband when I was 18 years old, and he's Khmer Thai, and I thought I was in love. I was like, oh, I'm getting out of the house. I met this man. So he was the first guy I ever brought home to my parents. And sure enough, my parents were like, what's your intention with her? Because she's not allowed to date. She's not allowed to go out. None of that. So either you marry her or leave my daughter alone. And I was like, please say you love me. It was like one of those like, please say you want to hang out with me because I'm not going to be able to see you. And at the time, 18 years old, I'm thinking, well, actually, I take that back. I apologize. 19, because I married him when I was 19. And I was like, oh gosh, well, please tell me that you do in my mind. And he did. My parents pulled him aside and said, she's not allowed to do any of that. And so we were engaged within 1 month of seeing each other. And then we were married within 6 months. I thought I was in love, and he was very traditional. So I think that's what he wanted. He wanted that traditional wife. So the marriage lasted 5 years and one daughter later. My oldest, she's 27. She actually works for our company now. So she runs the entire operation for our school, and her and I have always been the best of friends. I've kind of molded her into that position in life. But she's also a very feisty little girl that kind of beats her own drum. She is such a wonderful person that one day I hope, she finds the love of her life like I do now. My second husband and I, we got married in 2006 and we've been together almost 19 years. We started our business together in 2007 and we were in the window tint industry. So window tinting, not the typical Khmer, businesses. A lot of the Khmer businesses here in Texas are either in gas station, liquor store, fried chicken, maybe like clothing stores, and there's hardly any restaurants here in DFW, unfortunately, that is Khmer owned. I think there's maybe a handful. I could be wrong, but I know that there is not one here, like close to me at all in DFW. You have to drive out a little bit further. But yeah, we kind of went a different route, and it was the skill set that my husband brought into the marriage. He tinted windows since he was 18 years old and came to me one day and said, I want to start a business. And I'm looking at him like, I don't know anything about running a business, sir. Like, what are you doing? And he was...
So how old were you at this point?
I was 31. I was 31.
Did you have a business prior to that, or what were you doing prior to,
So
to meeting your second husband?
I worked in the corporate world. I worked for American Airlines, for them as passenger sales manager. I manage account out in Southern California and Hawaii. So I did a lot of corporate travel agency type bookings. It wasn't me booking it. It was more managing their corporate clients. And so I kind of got that, understanding the whole corporate contract negotiation, just the professional side of it, working for American Airlines and just understanding, good customer service, how a contract works and how negotiation works. And we went through a lot of different training programs. I mean, American really invested in us. I mean, there was a group of us that were in our 20s that went into the program, and they really, really took good care of us that came in and said, we're going to invest in you because we know you're going to be kind of the future of our company. I was with them for 8 years, loved every minute of it. The only reason why I left is because after 9/11, they started taking benefits, and managers, we were taking pay cuts after pay cuts, just so that the company can get back into the profit. So I left, but I also left for another reason. My husband and I, when we got married, were a blended family. He brought in a set of twin girls. They were 4 at the time, and my daughter was 7 at the time. So I became an instant mom of 3 little girls. I don't know what God was thinking, but he really, thought that I could handle this. And let me tell you, it was probably one of the most challenging thing that I've ever had to go through in my entire life as a blended family and a stepmom to 2 little girls. It's just one of those things where I was like, oh Lord, you really, really think that I'm the strong warrior, but I don't know, and it wasn't the easiest. I mean, I can talk a whole subject, a blended family on that. That's a different thing, but I will tell you, it took a lot of prayers and a lot of, just compromising and biting my tongues. I will tell you now that they are 23, almost 24. My oldest is 27. We have an amazing relationship now because they saw it for their own eyes. Why we were protective, they're making wiser decision and going, okay, we see what you're trying to say. I didn't have to say anything. We see it. And so my relationship with my stepdaughters is in a really great place now, which is wonderful.
Are they part of the business as well?
No, one of them is a barber. And then we have another, the other twin. She is going into the medical field. She wants to do radiology, sonogram. Sonogram tech, I think is what it's called.
Okay.
And then, of course, our oldest, she runs our entire operation. So just to kind of let you know, we have our window tint company for 17 and a half years, all season tint and graphic design. And then we sold it last year, and we were going to retire. My husband is a little younger. He's a couple years younger than me. I was 49. We were going to retire. 6 months into it, we're like, we're still very young. This is boring. Okay. Traveling is great.
What are you going to do?
What are we going to do? So I remember we were on Christmas vacation in Florida, and my husband says, I really, really wish we can do something on a educational side of teaching. I said, well, yes, we can. I said, you've always wanted to do this. When we had our retail shop, we always wanted to incorporate teaching this trade, but because we were running our retail, we were just too busy, right? And we didn't have the time. I said, we can now focus on just having a school and teaching this trade. So we came back and we made a few phone calls and we got a spot. And now we have this school called North Texas Tint Institute, where we actually teach the trade, window tinting, paint protection, flat glass insulation, and car wrap. Now he gets to educate people on actually doing this. He's been in this industry for 28 years. Once our student comes through, it's a 5-day program. Our student comes through it. Not only do they get to learn the basic and the fundamental of the tinting industry, but they also have us as, an ongoing support, meaning they can call us at any time and say, hey, I'm running through this problem, or, hey, I'm interested in opening up my own business now. Can you help me? It's about sharing our knowledge. So for us to open up our school, oh my goodness, it's been such an incredible journey to now be able to mentor these young men and women. And I will tell you, before getting into this industry, I thought, window tinting, who the heck? Why? Why do we want window tint? And I realized in Texas and most of the southern part of the country, you are going to burn if you do not have window tint on your car. So I was like, okay, I get it. But then what really made it more exciting was when we really turned it into a business, where we ran this as a business. It was like we had a brick and mortar. We had people coming in, getting their car tinted. We had schools and, buildings and counties and then calling us saying, hey, we've got a school that we would love for you to come and tint the flat glass on it. Hey, you know what? We just got through dealing with some threat. We would love to have security film put onto the windows to protect our employees. I mean, it is a whole, it's a whole gamut of things. It's not just about putting tint on a car. It's how do you turn this into a business? And that's exactly what we did.
I want to summarize where we are at so far in your professional life. So you spent many years in the corporate world in sales management, and then you met your husband at 35. You opened your business. And how long did you run that business for?
17 and a half years.
17 and a half years. And then you sold it.
Yep.
And now you're currently running a school training people in the industry, in the window
Correct.
tinting and car wrapping industry. Okay, got it. And what else are you doing on top of that? I think you mentioned in your bio that you run a nonprofit too.
I do. I know, as if I don't have enough on my plate. So this year, we launched Resilient Education Initiative, which focus on pouring back into the community. I mean, Adrian, my husband, and I have always, even when we had our business, we always found ways to contribute and pour right back into the community, whether it's helping a nonprofit with sponsorship or, donating our products and services so that they can have it at a silent auction and things like that. So it's always been a part of us. Being that I grew up poor and knowing what it's like to not have, and knowing that when somebody volunteers and give their time, it affects so many people. I wanted my children to grow up and realize that, you're growing up with a silver spoon, and I do not ever want you to forget your roots, your parents' roots. And so for me, being able to have my children alongside us, to volunteer and things like that, it opens up their eyes to be more kind and compassionate. That saying is, what it's like to not have. So giving is easy. Like for me, giving, selflessly is so easy for me because I remember how that felt when somebody gave their time and their love or whatever it was. And so, the Resilient Education Initiative, basically what we do with that nonprofit is any high school students that cannot afford our program, which is $2,500, but $2,500 to somebody who doesn't have is a lot of money. But $2,500 is our program. You go through the 5 days, you get 2 meals, breakfast and lunch, and then you get your first set of tools. If they do not have that money, they can actually apply for the scholarship. As long as they meet the criteria of why they want to get into this industry, and they're still in high school and they're about to finish, things like that. And it's not necessary for just high school student, because we know that there are people out there that have already graduated and they just don't know what to do, but they don't have the money to get into the program. So they can actually apply for the scholarship. We just launched it this year. Haven't really raised a ton of money yet. It's very brand new. But we're on Facebook, Resilient Education Initiative. So if you haven't follow us, please do. We're doing a lot of wonderful things, and we're, wanting to do a lot of wonderful things for the program and just being able to pour back into the community. Trade in America has become something that every student in America should think about. College isn't always right for you. My husband was a perfect example of a man that said, college is definitely not right for me. He had, different learning disability, dyslexia, ADHD, things like that. And he went to Fresno, like a Fresno community college, and was there for one semester. And he was like, I don't understand. So he packed his bag and came back home to Texas and realized I'm going to pick up a trade. So picking up this trade for him has made him a self-made. For me, it's like if you learn a trade, whether it's plumbing, electrician, HVAC, window tinting, mechanic, those are all the things that are going to get you very far, because now these people that wake up and they actually say, this is what I want to do. This is a passion. It's not like, oh, I'm going to go do that. Somebody who is a plumber, that's a passion. And if you can learn it and become a skilled person of that trade, I promise you the opportunity is there. Yeah, I never get into a mindset of, oh, there's competition. No, there's no competition. Yeah. Because if you're good at what you do, people are going to come find you. So that's kind of like how we've always looked at everything.
Thank you for highlighting the fact that you don't have to go into a white collar profession to be successful in life.
Absolutely.
And the trades is something that people should consider. You're right. If you have a passion for it, you'll figure out a way. I just want to go back to your childhood and talk a little bit more about that. So you mentioned, you didn't know that you were poor because you're always well fed, and they provided you with the essentials enough, and they loved you. So in terms of like inspiration, was there someone that you looked up to when you were growing up?
Yes. So my grandparents, the Chaks, they're no longer with us. So my grandmother, Kim, she's Vietnamese, and she was an amazing cook. She spoke multiple languages, Vietnamese, French, Cambodian. And then my grandfather, he was a 5-star general for the French American Army back in the days, for the Royal Army. And so he spoke multiple languages. We had multiple different languages being spoken in our household. Like if my grandparents didn't want us to know what they were talking about, they would speak French. So my grandmother, she raised me from birth until I was 13 years old. And then she passed away in 1989, and my world crushed. I mean, my whole world, because she was, she took care. She was kind of the glue of our family. She, was an amazing cook. She was an amazing wife, mother, and grandmother to us. And so for me, that was who I wanted to be when I grew up. This wonderful lady that just loved her family wholeheartedly. And my grandfather, who was this man that would walk into a room and demand attention. He was very strong. He was, I remember we were playing goldfish, and he took the goldfish and threw it out the house. He was like, no gambling in our household. Like, we were not allowed to even play goldfish, and that was considered gambling. He raised us like little soldiers. I think growing up for me we were the type of kids that we were only meant to be seen and not to be heard. So like when we had guests come over, he would line all 5 of us up. We would greet the guests, and we would stand there until our grandfather or grandmother or mom and dad would be like, okay, it's time for y'all to go away. And that was it. We stood there, we sat in a line, and we were like, okay, and then they would say, okay, you guys can go play now. And we would leave. Having that systematic discipline, very just direct and very straight to the point, I think it really structured me. I do get jealous of people that can just fly by the seat of their pants, like my husband. I cannot do that. I wish I could. And I just get so envious of the fact that he can just be like, whatever, I'll figure it out later. And I'm just like, oh, no, we need a plan. You know what I mean? Like, kind of gives us that balance. Like, he is very much like fly by the seat of the pants. Let's do it now and ask forgiveness later. And I'm very like, oh, let's see what the plan is. We got A, B, C, D, so it helps both of us as business partners. So just to kind of give you a Vanny, we're not only husband and wife, we're business partner for literally 99% of our entire marriage. So people look at it and go, how in the heck do you do it? And I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know, but it works, and it has been. And, I don't know what the secret sauce formula is, but it has worked for us. We do a lot of communication. There's a lot of ideas that come at each other all the time. And then me being the realist, would be like, okay, let's take all that idea and let's see what it looks like. And then I would jot everything down. I'm a big proponent of writing things down and
Uh-huh.
looking at it because I feel like that the eyes and the mind connects with each other so that we're kind of like, okay, that makes sense. And no, that doesn't make sense. So yeah, I mean, it works and it's been working. We're going on to year 20, July of 2025, 20 years. Wow. And it's been great. I mean, the kids are all grown. Oh, I forgot to tell you, I don't even know. I forgot to tell. We do have our youngest. He is, he's going to be so mad at me. You forget, right? But no. Yeah. So Adrian and I, we actually have a 13-year-old. He's about to be 14 here on the 18th, and his name is Lucas. He is our little baseball player. He is
Aw.
amazing. He's sweet. So I feel like this is what happened. Okay, this is what I feel like. This is what God told me. He goes, "I'm going to put you through hell and back, but I'm going to make you realize why I did what I did, and He gave me my son." So that's what I feel like He did.
Aw.
This little boy couldn't be more perfect. You know, he is deaf. He's partially deaf, so he does wear a hearing aid. But let me tell you, you would never know that Lucas has any type of disability because he is an all boy. I mean, I don't know if you see my Facebook, but this little kid is just the most sweetest, gentle, kind, compassionate little kid. And he's going into this amazing young man. And, you know, it's my responsibility, Adrian and our responsibility to raise him into this godly man.
Let's go back to your childhood. Did your parents push academics on you? Because you mentioned that you read a lot of books because you weren't allowed to go out and party and stuff. So that was sort of your escape. Is that why you weren't allowed to go out? Because they wanted you to focus on studying?
Yes. I mean, I'm sure there was many more reasons why, but that was one of the top was, you know, growing up, like I said, we were very poor. And my mother always said, you know, education is going to get you out of poverty. You know, education will always be your number one, you know, to get you out of the situation that you're in.
Did you go to university or college after high school? And what did you study?
I did. I enrolled in a junior college, you know, that's here locally, and just kind of took my basics and got my associates there. And then so I got married at 19, barely turning 20, right? And so
Wow.
I went ahead and finished, you know, my junior college, and then I went right into wifehood. And then a couple of years later, I went into motherhood. And so I always in the back of my mind, I'm like, I want to go back, and I preach, you know, college obviously to my kids all the time. And I want to make sure I go back and get my business degree. So it wasn't until I was like, I was 35 actually is when I went back and enrolled in an online college and got my degree. And, you know, from 35 to, 36, I was in school night, like after the kids were in bed, I went to do my homework, right? And then at 2 weeks before I was to give birth, I actually emailed my professor and said, "Hey, I'm about to give birth. Can I go ahead and take my last two finals?" And he was like, "Yeah, that's fine." So I took my finals so that I could walk that following summer. And so that's what I did is I was able to take my finals. I graduated at 37 years old with my business degree, and not that I needed it because I was already doing what I was
That
doing,
was my
running a
next
business.
question.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't really need to, but I did. I mean, I love learning. Learning was easy for me. My husband says, "Oh my gosh, you're one of those person that just makes going to
You're an
school so
overachiever.
easy." Is that what it is? I
That's what
mean,
it sounds
I get,
like.
I love learning. I love learning new things. And so for me, it was very easy to go through what I went through. And then, like I said, after being able to graduate, it was just, to me, it's just a piece of paper on the wall that says, "Yeah, you graduated." And it was like a whoop-de-doo. But at the same time, I'm like, it was the discipline. At the end of the day, it was the discipline that I put into it, because every night when I would hit my kids to bed, I would go right into my assignments and did what I needed to do. And I'd be up until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, finishing up my assignment so that I can finish. And it was just my own personal goal, pushing myself, because I've always felt like I needed to do that ever since I was little.
Did it help you in any way?
Um, uh, Not really. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I mean, like I said, it was just more of, okay, I accomplished this. I accomplished this. I was already running, a 7-figure company. I mean, we were already, achieving all these big, contracts, government contracts, local dealerships, things like that. So we were already running those type of relationships already. So it wasn't like going to boost my, you know,
Income or
paycheck at all.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. It's like, this conversation isn't about, hey, go to college or whatever. To me, it's just my journey that I went through, right?
Did you know that you wanted to own your own business when you were, say, in your teens?
Absolutely not.
No. Did you always think that you were going to work for someone?
I guess because that's what we were taught. We were like, go to school, go to college and then go work for a big company. And before I met my husband, I always thought I was going to work for American Airlines forever. Like I literally thought I was going to retire and work for them forever because I loved my job. But then after meeting my husband and our situation financially had to change because he went from a party of 3 and then for me, a party of 2 to now a party of 5. Financially, we needed to figure out, well, how can we make more money so that we can feed 5 people? I had no idea that I was even going to be an entrepreneur. I thought that was the coolest word. Entrepreneur, like, wow, what does it take to be an entrepreneur? Like that just sounds so neat. And
walk us through this. Like, how did you know that you were going to make more money going this path?
Well, what's funny is that, when we had our little brick and mortar, people would literally come in and be like, hey, do you guys tint flat glass? And we're like, I'd look over at my husband. I'm like, do you tint flat glass? And he was like, yeah, we can do that. And what we realize is the structure and pricing is completely different, right? So the pricing for automotive is very set, kind of standard, competitive in the market. But when it comes to flat glass, you're doing it by the square feet. So you measure length times width times height, right? And and that comes out completely different. So if it's like $10 a square feet, imagine like a standard window, 36 by 36 window, and you're timing that by $10 a square feet. So now you're talking about, okay, the money is a little bit more than just a car, because on an average car, I mean, I'm just giving you like a number on an average car, it could be $250, but if you're doing a 36 by 36 and it's $10 a square feet, I mean, just for one window, but they don't just give you one window. That's $90 a window. So let's say they give you 5 windows, you're talking about $450 for 5 small windows. So it adds up. So when that started happening, a light bulb went off in my head. I was like, holy moly, like this aha moment of if I tint, 50 windows in a school, and we're talking about $90 times 50. I mean, that's $4,500, or if it's more than that. So it just depends on the type of film. So you start thinking like, okay, now we're going after the bigger, fish. We're not just going after the little, Nemos anymore. We're going after the sharks and the whales, right? And so as a business person, you start thinking like that. You start thinking of like, okay, if I go after this school district, and they've got 42 school, and out of those 42 school, they've got over 1,000 windows in each school. I mean, you do the math. You know what I mean? So you start to think like that.
Yeah. How did you get the business? Did you respond to an RFP or did you do,
we did. So
marketing?
We did RFPs, and then we also just through relationship, somebody that would come in and be like, hey, I work as a maintenance manager at, this local whatever, and I'm going to connect you with my purchasing department. Now I'm telling you my secrets, but you know what I mean? It's like, that's how you do it. And you build those relationships. Once that relationship is built and is trusted, And, reliability is everything. You can't just give somebody the song and dance and the dog and pony show if you're not going to follow through with what you actually do. So that was very personal to me. It's like, if I'm a consumer and I'm calling a business and I want a service done, please don't give me the dog and pony show and then you don't show up and then I'm having to sit here and wait for you. Have you ever felt so annoyed whenever the cable guy says, "Oh, I'll be there between 2 and 5," yeah. So that's kind of that's where my heart is. And so I always sit there and say, I would never do that to somebody. And so building that trust and building that reliability with people has really, Fanny, helped our business so much. We're going into year 20 together, and 99% of our life has been business owners. And we don't take it home with us. So that's my word of advice. It's not pretty. Being an entrepreneur, it's not pretty. And you do not get to keep all the millions, I promise. There's a lot of overhead, a lot of taxes.
Yeah, the challenges of being an entrepreneur in terms of challenges growing up. So you've had obviously the financial restraints with your parents working all the time and just not. What did you say to your parents again? Oh, the lights went off. So not even having enough money to pay for the electricity bill. What other challenges did you face when you were growing up?
Discrimination was one of them. We lived in an all-white neighborhood. And the first time I realized that there were other Asian was in high school.
Okay.
And, we were called every name in the book. I mean, I don't know if I could say any of these names, but they were awful. So my brother, myself, my brothers, we were the only little Asian kid running around. Yeah. So it was different because, like I said, we got called every single ugly name, derogatory name in the book. And I always felt like I had to defend my brothers because I was the oldest. And so I became a tomboy. I mean, I didn't know that I became a tomboy, but I was. So I fought a lot. I'm not proud of that, but I had to fight a lot with, these boys or whatever that were always being so ugly. We have rocks thrown at us. Yeah, just ugly things.
Talk about it so matter of factly, it's almost like you had kind of shut that part of your life off.
You know what? I didn't think about that, but yes, it's so crazy because those are dark times. Those are some times that you're just looking back and you're like, how can that be? Because I think it's what happened is my kids don't have to go through that.
Mm-hmm.
We're so blessed and so fortunate that we don't live in a neighborhood where I don't even know how many times I've left my keys in my car and it would be there overnight and I'm going through a house looking for it. And then I go, oh, it's in the car and it's in there the whole time. So I'm very blessed in that sense that my kids will never, ever have to. And I pray to God that never happens, that our children will ever have to face war, what we had to go through, or just discrimination. And, when I found out my son was deaf, it broke my heart because, I felt like, oh my goodness, he is going to be looked at so differently.
Like the other, like you were.
Right. And so that pit of your stomach fear. But then I realized, oh my goodness, Lucas is such a light that he did not have to worry about that. Everybody that, he went to school with, they were so kind and so compassionate. They knew. And because Lucas was just like any other boy, just because he has hearing aids in his ears, people usually thought that he has Bluetooth. They would be like, oh, those are cool Bluetooth, Lucas. It's been a part of his life. But just that fear as a mom, you are a mama bear, you want to protect your children. And like I said, growing up for me was really, really, because my parents worked a lot. So I was the mom that had to take care of my brothers and then sisters came 10 years later. My two younger sisters came into the picture. And so I'm the oldest. I'm 50. My youngest sister is 40. And then the second to the youngest, she's 43. And then my brother is 48. And then my middle brother is 46, 47.
How many kids were there when you guys arrived in the U.S.?
It was just me and my brother. And then my youngest brother, it was 3 of us. My youngest brother was probably about 9 months. The youngest was about 9 months. and then myself and my little brother. So there's three of us. And then my mom, I found out that she was actually like a couple months pregnant coming to the US, because then my sister came along. So I'm like, wait, so, it's one of those like moments in your life where you're just like, I really don't remember a lot of that stuff, because I kind of blacked it out because it was just a dark time in my life.
Yeah.
And it's not until these type of conversation comes up is when I start to go, oh, wow. Okay. I remember that. Or, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
So it looks like you made it look easy, right? But I want to let people know that you had to go through so much to get to where you are, and sounds like you're still, battling it in a way, but you just don't really talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, that's a part of it's part of my history that I'll never ever forget. I'm very proud, that I'm a refugee. I'm a child of war. Like, those are things that I'm very proud. And when I say proud, I'm proud because I have that journey
You've gone through so much. Yeah.
that molded me, right? Yeah. For me, it's because I went through all of that. That is what shaped me into the woman that I am today. And because I'm very proud of that, I have that history, and knowing that that's what pushed me to be where I am today, I speak boldly about that. I don't try to hide that I lived in a trailer park. I lived in a trailer park in a 2-bedroom mobile home with my parents struggling. We lived in a 2-bedroom apartment that shared with another family, refugee family that came to the country when we first stepped foot in America. My stepdad, which, by the way, I did not even know that he was my stepdad until I was about 10 years old, when my uncle came to from North Carolina and said, "Oh, that's not your real dad." And I was like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "No, that's not your real dad." And I was
What?
like, "No, I know." Now another little family secret, but not anymore.
But
But
no,
yeah, I
you know
did
what?
not know that my
That's amazing that, he just treated you as if you were his biological child.
Oh yeah. I mean, my dad is a soft spoken man. He was a man of very little words. He was a hardworking man, and he still is. I mean, he obviously, they're retired now. My parents are retired. And what I found out is my real dad actually, was taken away in the middle of the night by the Khmer Rouge. And he was obviously murdered, because my father he was a doctor in Cambodia, and he did not look like a farmer. He is this tall Chinese Mongolian, man that's just 6'3", white as can be. So there was no way that he would have disguised himself as a farmer. They took him in the middle of the night, and we never seen him again. But I didn't know any better. I thought, wow,
Well, you were young at that time.
yeah. It wasn't until much, much later, until my uncle, who came to visit us, whenever I was like, "Oh, my dad." And he was like, "That's not your dad." And I was like, "Huh?" I was like, "What are you talking about?" And they're like, so it caused a big fight between my uncle and my mom, because, he wasn't supposed to tell me that. But I don't think it was a big deal. But you know how Clay, there are certain things that you just don't talk about, right?
Mhm.
And when it's talked about, it just turns into this big dramatic cinema production. And I'm just like, that was like, now if something like that happened, I don't think I would be that dramatic. I'd be like, yes, you were adopted, or yes, this is not your real biological parent, right?
How did you feel when you discovered?
I started questioning more. It was like, okay, what do you mean this is not my real dad? Who are you? And this is my uncle and my aunt, they were like, and I thought it was weird, because then I started putting two and two together, and I'm like, you look like my dad. Like, wait, my uncle literally is a spitting image of my real dad. And I'm very close with him. He lives in North Carolina. And, he's like, yeah, this is not your real dad. And there was a big controversy about that. But over the years, obviously, that kind of just went away. And I love my dad. I mean, he took both my brother and I as his own children. My mom and my dad, they ended up having three more. So there's five of us, obviously. And, we were raised in the same household to always love each other and not ever think of each other as half siblings or anything like that. that's just how it is. I mean, I'm very fortunate to have that kind of love, growing up. Both my grandparents and my parents were very, very loving, which is so rare from what I hear from a lot of my friends. They're like, oh, we didn't grow up with affectionate family members. And I was like, wow. And to me, it sounds so foreign, right? Because I grew up with parents, and grandparents that would tell us that they love us, that they would hug us and love on us, right? And a lot of my friends did not.
I asked you pre-interview, what advice would you give to yourself when you were younger? And then your answer is to live life to the fullest, take risks, and never let anyone tell you that you can't do it. Because when you hear those words, it should push you, motivate you, and make you want to prove them wrong.
Yeah.
In terms of taking risks and not letting anyone else tell you that you can't do it, did you get a lot of that when you were starting your business?
Oh, yeah. I think it was more the inexperience. We heard no a lot. Like there's a lot of talking to yourself and telling yourself that, no, it can be done. Don't you dare let somebody tell you no. So there was a lot of those internal conversation that I had. So there's a lot of like sleepless night of trying to figure out, okay, how do we make this happen? And I just heard no from this, and then I'm like, no, I know there's way around this. So there was a lot of trying to figure out like ways around things just because you heard no. I don't like no. No to me is not option for me. It's not, it is not an option. You cannot tell me no because all it does is it just pushes me, to want more. Right. And I don't think I've, if somebody has tenacity like that, I will give myself that word tenacity because I think hearing that word no, being a fighter that I feel like I've always had to be, that it just pushes me more to want it. And that is my word of like advice to anybody. If you have that desire to want something bad enough, pick something that pushes you, and for me, it's the word no. Don't tell me no.
Yeah, you go on to write, fear is what you will hear when others don't believe in themselves, so they will project their own fears onto you when you share with them your thoughts and ideas. Sometimes you just have to go on the journey on your own and alone to achieve your goals because everyone's journey is different. And I can not agree with you more.
Yeah.
Why would you take someone's advice who hasn't done what you want to do?
Exactly.
That's how I think about it too. Like, well, sure, you may not think that this is going to work out, but have you done it? Like, who are you to say that?
Yeah. Well, and there's another thing is go into a room where there's smarter people.
Exactly.
No shame in that. There's no shame in finding friends that are way smarter than you because you can learn something from them.
Yeah. You're a busy woman, it sounds like. And in terms of free time, what do you do?
I garden. It's literally, I did not think I had a green thumb at all, Vanny. My grandparents were the most amazing green thumb people. And my husband used to say, plant just comes to our house to die. And I was like, oh, you're so right. So for many years, but I think what it is because I was so busy with life that I would forget to water these dang plants. And so they would die. Well, now that I've slowed down a little bit and have taken time to actually smell the roses, well, now that I'm doing that, my plants, I can't believe my plants are growing. Another thing that I actually love to do is I spend a lot of time at the baseball field because my son plays baseball. And so I consider myself a baseball mom. We've been doing it since he was 5. He's 13, about to be 14 now. So baseball is our life. And so, yeah, those are the two things that I love, gardening and baseball.
Oh, that's great. But yeah, any last parting words before we end the show?
First of all, I just want to say thank you, Vanny. This is wonderful. I love being able to share my journey with others. Now, I don't know, however you shared on your program, I hope that it touches somebody's life and somehow inspires somebody else to go, you know what? My journey is very similar and the conversation that I had with you resonates with them somehow. I'm not here to, to tell anybody that they can't do it. I'm actually here to say you can do it because I am a product of that. And other than that, like I said, I really appreciate the opportunity to sit down and talk with you and share my life with you all. And hopefully we'll get to meet each other in person soon.
You are quite the inspiration, and I'm so glad that you touched on the trades again. Like I said earlier, how it is a career option that is very lucrative. So thank you for sharing that, and thank you for sharing your inspiring story.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I hope you have a blessed weekend.
I hope you enjoyed this episode with Channy. By the way, her name is Channy in Khmer. It was interesting to hear from someone who has some recollection of the Khmer Rouge times, right? Channy isn't much older than I am. I'm 43 and she's 50. Her early childhood in Texas wasn't all rainbows either, having faced bullying and discrimination because she and her family are Asian. And she credits her loving family and faith in God to her being the woman she is today. But you gotta give her props too for her tenacity. Channy, I hope that our conversation helped in your healing process a bit. Not only will your story impact other people, but I know it helps talking about things. Thank you so much again for sharing your journey thus far. Everyone else, if you'd like to learn more about the Salazar's Trade School or nonprofit, check out the links in the show notes. And remember, this is the last Khmer Voices episode of 2024. We'll return January 7th, 2025 with a new episode. And lastly, if you know someone who'd enjoy my interview with Channy, be sure to share this episode with them. And please, if you haven't yet, give Khmer Voices a good rating wherever you listen to your podcasts. Akun Charan for listening and all your support, Netak Aknia. I truly, truly appreciate the love. Enjoy the holidays and have a happy new year.